67.
4, 3, 2, coming out, step 1, and here we go.
This is definitely a monster heading towards us. There will be intense winds all across this area.
It's going to make landfall somewhere in this area.
If you can't leave, leave now.
You are under a mandatory evacuation order.
Traffic is 3 lanes deep headed towards Baton Rouge.
This is not a test. This is the real deal.
We're seeing gusts of about 100 miles an hour.
It's just so massive and it's so awe-inspiring.
We are facing a storm that most of us have feared.
We're in God's hands.
And the news has gone from bad to worse.
The water is going to continue to rise.
A levee breach has occurred along the industrial canal.
I don't want to get caught in the water.
A lot of people inside of the attics, they're screaming. We can hear them. We're trying to get them out right now.
It looks like a war zone. I've never seen nothing like it in my lifetime.
This is the worst disaster in history.
People all over the levees, all over houses, and they're going to die unless we can get help.
It's been a nightmare. Just holy, holy hell.
It's hard to believe that we're witnessing this kind of flooding.
We just need help.
The hardest thing is telling our kids what it looks like.
Hey, stop it! Drop it! We're going to make it. We're going to be all right.
We're going to be fine. We have our faith. Thank God for that.
Be at some place
On in 19...
High tide.
You guys are awesome, man. I can't tell the public enough.
WWL was on the air 24/7 during the storm and immediately after.
When Mike Halls and Dennis Walton, they stood with me.
WWL-TV stayed on this thing from the beginning.
Let me tell you something. These guys are warriors.
Its competitors were knocked off the air, but WWL had an emergency broadcasting facility.
We always knew we had someplace to go.
We've covered so many storms, but it was always someone else. You know, this time it was us. And we will be bonded by an experience, a place, and a time in history.
They were the light in the storm. When every light was out, when every light was out, WWL was here.
This is Eye on Hurricanes 99. This is Eye on Hurricanes 2003. This is Eye on Hurricanes 2005. An Eyewitness News special with Angela Hill, Dennis Waltering, and Carl Arredondo.
Twice now in 6 years, people here in Metro New Orleans have faced mass evacuations from threatening hurricanes.
In 1998, it was George, a Category 3 storm. Last year, it was Ivan, which packed 160-mile-per-hour winds in the Gulf.
And history tells us we may now be in a cycle where major hurricanes happen more often and are more likely to make landfall.
You've heard it over and over again. Evacuation is the best way to save lives when facing a major hurricane. That's the focus of a majority of this program.
We'll show you what you and your family need to know to evacuate successfully based on where you live and the destination you're trying to reach.
And we'll look at how much tropical activity we can expect this storm season.
Airline Highway, that's Highway 61, is also an option to go west to Baton Rouge. It will not be involved in contraflow. If you want to go north towards Macomb, Mississippi, you would enter the I-10 westbound in the normal way and stay in the right-hand lanes. When you reach LaPlace, you will be directed to go north on I-55.
It's estimated that more than 100,000 people will be stranded in the metro area by lack of transportation or disabilities that prohibit travel. Sally Ann Roberts looks at their plight.
Some people cannot or will not leave. In Orleans Parish alone, as many as 100,000 people chose to stay behind during Hurricane Ivan because they were too old, too sick, or did not own an automobile.
There are going to be those who fall through the cracks.
Red Cross CEO Kay Wilkins says a plan is the best safe haven for those with no transportation and few options.
Least heed what we've said. Have a kit. Have some supplies that you've stored up. Know where it's going to be safe to go, but know that in a city that's going to be inundated with 12 feet of water or 20 feet of water or whatever the storm surge is going to be, nowhere here is going to be safe.
Then there is Operation Brothers Keeper. It's a cooperative effort by the City of New Orleans, local universities, Total Community Action, and the Red Cross. It uses churches and faith-based groups to help provide transportation during an evacuation. New Orleans Director of Emergency Preparedness Joseph Matthews says that 46 churches are participating in the program. But that only accounts for 2,000 people, far below the estimates of those left behind during recent evacuations. What about them? Matthews has this advice.
Get a ride with the neighbor, their family, a friend, or someone. Don't depend upon OBK, the government or the city or no one else.
WWL-TV developed a comprehensive disaster plan 7 years ago. A main element is being ready for hurricanes. The plan outlines preparations and duties of each department, advises employees on personal and family readiness, and establishes a list of emergency supplies. Food, flashlights, and bedding are stockpiled and checked at the beginning of each hurricane season. News personnel were divided into 2 teams. The teams would either work in shifts during continuous coverage or be divided between alternate broadcast locations if the station had to be abandoned because of a storm threat. We planned alternative broadcast sites where we would keep vital information flowing to our viewers. One alternative was our transmitter complex. Completed in April of 2002, the digital analog transmitter was built with hurricanes in mind. The antenna is rated for 140-mile-an-hour winds, and the transmitter is housed 18 feet above ground in a concrete blockhouse that can withstand Category 5 hurricanes. Planning included room inside for an emergency studio. But even though the complex could survive a storm, another alternative was necessary in case the transmitter was inaccessible because of flooding or civil unrest. In 2004, WWL-TV News made an agreement to use the studio of Louisiana State University's Manship School of Mass Communications in Baton Rouge, 65 miles northwest of New Orleans. The school's studio provided cameras, switchers, telemation, and editing capabilities. The signal would be sent by satellite to the transmitter in New Orleans. The plan was in place, and unfortunately, we had to use it.
From WWL-TV, the spirit of Louisiana. This is Louisiana's news leader, Channel 4's Eyewitness News.
A monster Category 3 storm and possibly taking aim at southeast Louisiana. Hurricane Katrina continues to move west in the Gulf of Mexico. The big question is, where will the storm make landfall? When will it turn north? John Gum is in the Weather Center. Let's get right to this. John, any new information for us?
Everything that we're looking at indicates this hurricane has the potential to strengthen even more than it already has, and that's something obviously that concerns us a great deal. There's the latest advisory, 24-5 north, 85 west, 497 miles away from New Orleans. Movement is to the west at 7 miles per hour. The winds at 115 miles per hour, making it a major Category 3 storm. Again, look at this cone of error here. It basically runs from Pensacola out to south central sections of Louisiana. This is the area that it could possibly make landfall in. In fact, we could say we're 100% certain at this point that it's going to make landfall somewhere in this yellow shaded area. Highest probability, based on everything that we're looking at this morning and this afternoon, is calling for Mississippi Gulf Coast to southeast Louisiana. So,
and again, we're not trying to frighten people, but this is one that we are, quite frankly, very frightened of.
We're concerned. I mean, we have a lot of concerns with this storm, Eric, and if it doesn't hit us directly, it's going to come close enough that we're going to see some very nasty conditions.
Mandatory evacuation is up in St. Charles Parish, Plaquemines Parish, and beginning at 2 o'clock in Lafourche Parish for areas south of the Leon-Ontario floodgate. Voluntary evacuations are underway in Terrebonne and St. Bernard Parish and down in Grand Isle. Tolls have also been lifted on the Causeway and the Crescent City Connection bridges if you're traveling in those areas. Orleans and Jefferson Parish officials say they are still in a wait-and-see mode. Their decisions could come within the next hour or so or later this afternoon. We are waiting for a news conference from Jefferson Parish and the city of New Orleans and Governor Kathleen Blanco's office, which should be coming up any time now. All right, let's go now to Ton Trong at the Yenny Building out in Jefferson Parish. And the governor and some other officials are about to speak there. Ton, what's going on there?
Well, Eric, everybody from parish officials, state senators, and all the officials from the municipalities here in Jefferson Parish are right now waiting for the arrival of Governor Kathleen Blanco to give the public a briefing.
That means people in lower-lying areas are being urged to get out before the storm comes. Josh McKelvin is in St. Bernard with the latest on that. Josh?
And Eric, here at the government buildings in St. Bernard Parish, they're taking the same kind of precautions that people all over the area are taking. You can see the bucket trucks behind me putting up the storm shutters on the windows here in the second floor offices of the St. Bernard Government Center. And in those offices, elected officials, emergency officials are doing right now what they've been doing all morning and in all probability what they will be doing over the next couple of days, and that is monitoring very closely the track of Hurricane Katrina.
All right, we're going to go back out to Jefferson Parish now. The governor has arrived, and I believe she is speaking right now. Let's go to Governor Blanco.
A little east, a little westward. No one really knows exactly where it's coming, but I think it's very wise for all of us to be well prepared and for each individual and each family to know exactly where they're going to go.
As you can see, 3 lanes deep. This is I-10 approaching clear at this end. Now, some good news. Traffic is no longer back to West End as it was before. It's back to that 610 I-10 merge. So traffic has eased up somewhat coming from the city. However, as you can see, still extremely tight headed towards Baton Rouge. Spoke to one commuter about 20-30 minutes ago. They said traffic on Airline between Norco and Laplace was very tight. I have not gotten any reports of any problems on River Road. That's also a good alternate route. And that's a good idea. Get out your maps right now. Start plotting the route that you want to take. Try maybe to take some of those lesser known highways instead of getting onto the interstate. But around 4 o'clock, actually at the top of the hour, we will have the contraflow explainer piece on Channel 4. You can also, if you want to take a look at it now before, you can go to WWL-TV.com where we have those contraflow explainer pieces on the web. Eric, back to you.
Very much, Jill, for that. And obviously, if you are leaving the city and do want to keep up on things here at home, you can always use your computer to video stream our newscast. We'll be going on with that continuously as long as we're on the air and covering the story.
Just in, the President Bush has issued a state of emergency for the state of Louisiana. He is urging residents to heed the advice of officials, recommending that they evacuate. He made that statement just a few moments ago from his ranch in Texas.
And we have new information in the Weather Center. Let's check in with John Gum to get that. John?
That's right, Dennis and Karen. We have the latest advisory in from the National Hurricane Center and a significant change in Katrina. Let's show you that advisory right now. The change is not with the strength and so much with the position, but with the movement. West-northwest now at 7 miles per hour. So the turn to the north may just now start.
You talked about the contraflow plan working. You can really see it firsthand right now. You know, cars in this intersection are usually going the opposite way into town, eastbound, and because of contraflow, they're going westbound right now. And as you can see, it's great. It's moving great right now. No problem for cars today, but that's quite different from earlier today. Just after 4 o'clock when contraflow started, you can see some traffic pretty backed up on I-10 as a lot of New Orleanians, you can tell, decided to leave town.
Bad news tonight from the North Shore. Most of St. Tammany's population is under a mandatory evacuation order. Earlier this evening, the St. Tammany Parish President issued those orders, telling everyone who lives south of the I-12 to evacuate by noon tomorrow.
He and I were both talking about that. There's some reason we feel differently about this one. You know, I usually won't go. I like to stay. This one does seem to worry me, and I don't know why. It's maybe just a feeling in the air, looking at things and wondering, you know, will they be here when we come back?
All right, we're going to go over to Dave McNamara, who is now live in Houma. Dave, how's it going over there?
You know, it's very much almost like a typical Saturday night in Houma. There's just a moderate amount of traffic on the road. Things were much busier earlier in the day when people who wanted to get out early were gassing up and making preparations and hitting the road. A lot of people probably hanging around to see what this storm does overnight before they decide if they'll leave, and if they do leave, which way they're going to run.
All right, we are joined now by Mayor Ray Nagin. We thank you so much for being here. I understand you just got off the phone with the National Hurricane Center.
I called him. He said, Mr. Mayor, I've been in this business 33 years. This is the real deal. If you can issue a mandatory evacuation, I would recommend you do. He said the storm surge on this particular hurricane could reach 20 to 25 feet. He said you do not have a levee system that can handle that. He said this storm is growing in intensity. It's already at 145 miles per hour with wind gusts of 170 miles an hour. He said this is the storm that everybody has feared for New Orleans for many, many years.
You are the mayor. You've just heard that. What do you do?
Well, you know, I'm looking at all our legal options. If I could do it tonight, I mean, I've got my city attorney is looking at all of our options as far as a mandatory evacuation is concerned. And the two sticking points are the hotels and the hospitals, because she does not believe that we can really pull this off. So we're looking at an option whether we can exempt them. But come first day, first break of light in the morning, you may have the first mandatory evacuation in the city of New Orleans' history.
And we certainly don't want to cause panic, but if I'm hearing you correctly, what you have heard is this is the big one we've been preparing for years, possibly decades.
It is the big one, and all the models that anyone has ever looked at said this storm is headed right on top of New Orleans.
Welcome back to our continuing Hurricane Katrina coverage. We are about 10 minutes away from 1 o'clock in the morning. Want to remind you, if you're out there packing at home and you want to throw your laptop in, please do so, because we are streaming all of our wall-to-wall coverage of Hurricane Katrina coverage on our website, WWL-TV.com. So wherever you go, if you've got internet capabilities, you'll be able to find out what's going on in New Orleans and what's the latest of the storm damage.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage. Hurricane Katrina is now a Category 4 storm with sustained winds of up to 145 miles an hour.
And certainly from talking to Bill and Dr. Maestri and Benny Rossell, southeast Louisiana is going to suffer some significant damage.
We have Senator David Vitter on the phone with us. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Sure, Dennis.
You have to be concerned about this storm moving in. What are your thoughts tonight?
Absolutely. This seems like a horrific storm, so we're all bracing for it clearly. I've been focused on the federal angle and making sure all the appropriate federal agencies led by FEMA are completely prepared for the recovery. And I think the good news is there that they are. The president gets it. He's very personally focused on this. FEMA knows that this is a massive threat. The FEMA director is in Louisiana on the ground. Large FEMA teams are already pre-positioned on the ground in Louisiana. So I think we've done everything we can in that regard.
Again, you can see this very well-defined eye getting closer and closer to southeast Louisiana. So we haven't seen something like this in quite some time. As you've heard us say many times before, the last major hurricane to affect metropolitan New Orleans, Betsy, in 1965. So the 40-year anniversary of Betsy, we're dealing with a Category 5 hurricane.
Let's check in on the Gulf Coast, as the storm is going to have an impact on the Gulf Coast as well. And in Gulfport is our Ben Lemoyne. Ben?
Dennis, this is the hour they knew was coming. A curfew is now in place in Harrison County, 9 o'clock. They don't want anybody to go anywhere anymore. That's what they're telling us. Those who are in place right now, they want them to stay there.
Within the last hour, still several hundred people lined up trying to get inside the Superdome. We were told by some people waiting in line they'd been sitting there for over 4 hours trying to get inside. There is security procedures for people to make sure that no one goes in with contraband or any kind of weapons, so they are screening people as they went through. And it was kind of interesting because we heard the National Guard soldiers, the troopsmen, walk up and down the aisle calling for women and children. They were bringing the women and children inside the Superdome first. They tell me they did that because they wanted to get them out of the elements. It is kind of drizzling there. They want to get them inside as soon as possible. Estimates show that there's about 15,000 people inside the Superdome right now.
We have on the line, we have Congressman Bobby Jindal. Congressman, you have to be very concerned about the community as the storm approaches.
Unfortunately, this is going to be a very, very busy time for all of us. You know, not only do we have to endure through the rains and the winds, but really a lot of the hard work starts after the storm.
Sunday, August 28th. It was clear that New Orleans would not dodge this storm. Our satellite trucks were deployed to areas where we expected the worst of the storm to hit. They would report on preparations until it would become necessary to batten down for the worst of the hurricane. Our microwave trucks were moved to wind-sheltered positions on the parking ramps of the Superdome. They would be safe from flooding and in a position to easily deploy after the storm. We stayed on the air from our station as long as possible. At 10:30 p.m., just 4 hours before the storm was expected to make landfall 90 miles to our south, News Director Sandy Breland made the call to turn the broadcast over to our crew in Baton Rouge.
And leading the crew in Baton Rouge, Sally Ann Roberts and Eric Paulson. Eric?
Thank you very much, Dennis. And Mike, we are here in Baton Rouge on the LSU campus at Hodges Hall.
The New Orleans team headed to a downtown hotel, which was the command post for city officials and would be our shelter for the night. The wind began to howl at 3 a.m. The power failed shortly after that. In the dark of that windowless ballroom, people huddled around a battery-powered TV to get information from the only station still on the air, ours.
The St. Bernard Parish and Slidell area may have a substantial wind damage with the Iowa coming on shore. As we mentioned earlier, so as Dr. Maestri said, that this is going to be a big test all over the place. After this happens, we're going to find out what has to be done and how those levee systems did protect or not protect against this Category 5-4 hurricane.
It's about 7:30 in the morning. This is the second time we've been out here already. City Hall has lost power. Here at the hotel, we have lost power. They do have lights. The backup generators have come on. We've been told by the weather meteorologist Carl Arredondo and Brad Panovich that we're seeing gusts of about 100 miles an hour.
This has just come out from the National Weather Service. A flash flood warning for Orleans Parish. Stay right there, Chancellor. We'll come right back to you. This is a flash flood warning for Orleans Parish.
A flash flood warning for Orleans Parish.
What has happened is a levee breach has occurred along the Industrial Canal at Tennessee Street. Now, Tennessee Street's in the Holy Cross area. It parallels the Industrial Canal a couple of miles away, a couple of blocks away from the Industrial Canal. Because of this levee breach, 3 to 8 feet of water is expected in that area.
Back now in the evacuation room, so to speak, in the Hyatt Regency Ballroom. We got up about 6 o'clock. You know, it's been raining with the squalls on and off through the night. Right about daybreak here at the hotel, they started having problems with the windows shattering here at this hotel. Roughly 40 to 50 windows had shattered in rooms, some along the Poydras Street side, some along the Loyola Street side.
We're joined now by Dennis in downtown New Orleans. And good afternoon, Dennis. I understand that Mayor Nagin had a press conference a short time ago.
Yes, Jennifer. Mayor Nagin gave us an update on what he knows at this point about the impact of the storm. He had a serious concern about drinking water in New Orleans. They have confirmed reports of bodies floating in Bywater, in New Orleans East, and in Eastover. He says this has been a tough day. The more we learn, the more challenging. And he says a significant part of the city is underwater. A significant part of the city is damaged. Also, there was a breach. He believes, police and fire say there was a breach. The Sewage and Water Board has yet to confirm it, but he believes there was a breach at the 17th Street Canal, and that's about a block and a half long. They're very concerned about that.
And as you can see by that heavy wind, the person who's taking this picture had to be very, very careful, and that's why we can't even get to some of the areas. There's the cars that were crushed that I was talking about, old buildings that had been in this city for more than 100 years, damaged.
And there still are a lot of old buildings in the CBD. We see a lot of the new buildings and some of the damage there, but we look at this old building and we're not sure how much of that building collapsed, but that car sure paid a heavy price for it.
We are back in our WWL Rampart studios here in the French Quarter. We are still having some communication difficulties, as you probably can tell, and so we are very close to being back in our studios, but we have been feeding you the videotape that you've been seeing from some of the early ramifications from Hurricane Katrina, and hopefully we'll be back up 100% within minutes.
That's right. And right now we are reporting to you from one of the newsroom offices. And as Mike said, we will bring you continuous coverage from our studios just as soon as we can fix a few communication problems.
We'll have some more video that we can show you. This is around the Circle Food Store, which is a kind of a landmark right there at Claiborne and St. Bernard.
And you know, I remember years ago when there was a massive flooding, and I can't remember.
Look at that flooding. And this is something we're going to show right now that we hate to show you, but looting at the Winn-Dixie.
On Basin Street.
So evidence of
And then actually, that's a beautiful new store too, and you hate to see that happen. As we said, disasters oftentimes bring out the best in people, and they bring out the worst in people. There's the NOPD in there looking around for maybe some of the culprits.
And the police chief, Eddie Compass, said that looters are going to be treated most harshly. That's mentioned that we are in Baton Rouge. We're actually at the LSU School of Mass Communication, the Manship School of Mass Communications, and we are very grateful to the LSU campus for allowing us to use their facilities here.
Where we spent the night, and you're going to see probably a lot of this shot now, but this is the Hyatt Hotel.
And
now,
that's
wait till the pan up, and you'll see the full effect. Every room on this side of the hotel, every window gone. And look at the roof of the Superdome. Remember the new roof they put on just a couple of years ago? Peeled away, torn away. This is from atop the New Orleans Center. Look at the hole, the gaping hole.
If you are one of the representatives of any of the emergency operations centers, we would ask that you would call us. We just cannot make any phone calls out. We're having a lot of phone difficulties.
We were trying to get to Kenner, and we just basically rolled up onto this scene. People trying to get to and from Claiborne to St. Bernard Avenue, trying to cross what seems to be like a river now on the street.
People got to eat. You know, they're going to do whatever they got to do to survive. You know, in this crooked-ass city, they don't really give a damn if you live or die.
It is absolutely terrifying to look at. As you drive over the St. Cloud Avenue Bridge over the Intercoastal Canal, all you see is water, pretty much, and the tops of roofs. And what you hear are people screaming for help.
Oh, no.
And this photo, to me, says so much here. You see these elderly people here who
likely had no choice
but to stay, and being helped out in a couple of minutes by their neighbors. We drove over there with the police. They saw it the first time, we saw it the first time together as they began the rescue operation really within the last couple of hours.
Okay, so here we have Lieutenant Mike Russell, we have Darren Hartman, and we have another gentleman. I know he was part of the narcotics New Orleans Police Department. And here you see we saw, this is a two-story home, and we saw these, we actually saw a man on top of the roof. And right now, as you can see, he's using the axe to get in, to get access, because some of the windows actually had bars in them, so he literally had to tell everyone to get back, and he had to axe his way into this home to rescue. They had two families that were next-door neighbors. Scary part is the children, you know, they thought they were going to be separated from their families, and they actually let the children come on, and then two of the mothers, the two mothers of these children, got to come with them. You'll see that in a moment, but it's just, it's amazing. I know, it breaks your heart to see this.
And I know there's a great number of people that are outlying New Orleans that are streaming us, and by streaming we mean you get on the internet and you can watch us as it's happening live. Right at your screen, bam.
Unbelievable.
Car drives in, Chris Merrifield, being the most polite human I know, told Jimmy, excuse me, and then ran into the water. He knew immediately.
That poor guy, he unfortunately realized it moments too late.
And thankfully, Chris Merrifield was there.
We're here on St. Cloud Avenue, where water right now is inundating the city, and we're still experiencing very strong wind gusts.
This is the first time we're looking at the tape.
Wow, and more wind damage than water here.
I showed you this a couple of times before. The forecast track when we left about 10 o'clock on Sunday night, the actual path, we did see a slight shift to the right.
You know, we're going to take a while to make sure we know what we're doing, and so that we can do it right, because there are a lot of downlines.
Katrina roared into the Mandeville-Covington area with ferocious power.
Couldn't afford to leave, and I didn't think it'd be this bad.
We just need to stress the fact that these roads aren't passable.
First broad, widespread damage report. This is the Gentilly aerials that they shot. That's the fairgrounds. It's been a split crew for Channel 4 as of about 10:45 last night, when the conditions for you and I got us to the hotel. And what a yeoman's job our colleagues did in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Covering a story that was 60 miles away. And they did so with the great help of the good folks at LSU. Because of that, and because of them, we've stayed on the air continuously. since about 11 o'clock Saturday morning, and we will continue. We've been talking to you all day. Bring us up to speed with news that is not necessarily very good.
Well, you know, you know, my heart is heavy tonight. I don't have any good news to really share, other than at some point in time, the federal government will be coming in here en masse. But, you know, the city of New Orleans is in a state of devastation. We probably have 80% of our city underwater. With some sections of our city, the water is as deep as 20 feet. We still have many of our residents on roofs still waiting to be repaired. We have firemen, policemen, just about everybody that you can think of out there trying to rescue individuals from their roofs. We have an incredible amount of water in the city. Both airports are underwater. We have the twin spans in New Orleans East have been totally destroyed. Wow. They're gone. We have 3 huge boats that have been run aground. We have an oil tanker that is also run aground that is leaking oil. We have a serious levee break at the 17th Street Canal, where the 17th Street Canal is a place where both Orleans and Jefferson Parish both drain their cities. And there's a serious leak, and it's causing waters to continue to rise in certain sections of the city. Kind of a surreal kind of situation. It's almost like a nightmare that I hope we wake up from.
It's going to take time.
Let me express it this way. It's mile after mile after mile of homes inundated with water. And it's endless.
Yeah, right now, our total focus is on life-saving efforts.
We talked about our crew evacuating and going to the West Bank.
New Orleans,
I think we
leaving
finally,
the French Quarter
I think
even,
we've finally established communication and are actually able. We've established communication before, but now we're actually able to see and hear from them on the West Bank from our transmitting site over there.
What happened this morning was that there was the water was filling up. It was coming into the downtown area, headed toward the French Quarter. And suddenly around 8 o'clock, just before 8 o'clock, around 7:30 or so, we got the word that we had better get out of the French Quarter area, our studios in the French Quarter, or we could be trapped by this water.
And if you're able to see this, just as I said before, haul ass and get out of town, because it's going to get a lot of work before it gets better. The water is rising. Mayor Nagin said that the 2-block break in the 17th Street Canal.
There are a lot of people still left in the city. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people walking around through downtown, whether it's tourists or locals or just sightseers. A lot of people in the city. We did not go a block without seeing people walking around, without seeing. And a lot of them are people like these people here that are coming out of the hotels in downtown. The hotels are getting uncomfortable with the rising water and basically telling the guests to go, like these people here, taking their bags. They'd hope to become some of the vertical evacuees. This is Canal Street, literally a canal today, underwater.
This is desperation. This is right, desperation. We're talking about shooting a cop.
And apparently shot the officer in the back of the head.
Wow. Mayor Nagin said last night on your station that they are not concerned about the floating bodies in the water. They're concerned about the people that may still be alive that we can help right now. So.
And getting information from one place to the other, even finding out what's going on, has been impossible. Yesterday, we had no communication with you guys. We couldn't call New Orleans. We couldn't call from one city in St. Tammany to another. And the emergency officials were in the same boat.
Ton Strong is just back from taking a look at this major flood situation, the 17th Street Canal.
You're looking at the breach itself. 400 feet of wall is missing. And they noticed this, the Orleans Levee District, the chief engineer, Steve Spencer, told me that this happened somewhere around 10 o'clock yesterday morning. But the word, because of the lack of communication, nobody could really get that word to anybody else.
And the news has gone from bad to worse. So now we have some horrific news to pass along. We're going to bring Jonathan Betts in. You've been covering this story all day long about the 17th Street Canal.
Yeah, we just got back with interviewing the mayor.
The pump at Station 6 has stopped pumping.
The case is not that the sandbags were brought and just simply didn't hold back the water. The sandbags were never brought.
The sandbags never got to the 17th Street Canal, which is very unfortunate and very frustrating for me.
As we are here in Baton Rouge at the LSU Manship School of Mass Communications, and this has kind of been our headquarters. We've been telling you for a while today that Eric Paulson took a helicopter ride in the New Orleans area.
And here's a house that exploded. Gas still pouring out of there. That's why the flame is going. ironically, almost like an eternal flame there. You can see the water boiling around it. Just the massive destruction. Look at the homes, the debris all over the place, the trees down. It's just hard to believe there's this much damage, this much high water.
Sheriff Jack Strain says that every road in St. Tammany Parish is impassable, including the twin span from Slidell to New Orleans. He says that today was basically a search and rescue mission. They got more than 300 people from the roofs of houses and flooded homes. And he has a message tonight for anyone who is trying to get back. Do not come home. And a several-mile stretch of highway looks like a game of pickup sticks. On the twin span bridge between Slidell and New Orleans, many sections are hanging into the water. Others shifted several feet. Boats and debris cover the roadway along with a car.
And we're going to go to the computer now, show you some graphics. Basically what this is showing where there's water and where there's not. I'm zooming into the 17th Street Canal. That is right there. Notice all to the east, it's blue looking, that's water in the city.
Governor Kathleen Blanco has some updated information about how they plan to evacuate the Superdome.
Families slept on the Crescent City connection, and we've got a crew out there.
This is on I-610 headed west, and these are Black Hawk helicopters. There was two of them that we saw that left and came back, and we kept picking people up. And the frustrating part about it for a lot of these people were there are so many people there. They didn't even bother trying to get into the helicopters anymore. I mean, they just figured when everybody else is gone, they'll pick me up. But mothers especially, you know, with children, they were having such a rough time. This is starting at Elysian Fields, and you can just see how many people are on there. This is both sides of the road, and we're just kind of starting to get into the crowds now. And they have to walk, and they're carrying babies. They're carrying whatever items they have left to get to the Superdome.
These were people rescued from rooftops and stuff like that?
Right. They could only be let off by people with boats.
Right.
I mean, there's no buses there to pick them up. And
then they just get to the Superdome. There's water around the dome. They're evacuating them.
And you know what the situation is with the Superdome. And that's
This just shows how
many people there are.
How extraordinary this situation
and
is.
how little resources they actually have to work with. There are no buses to pick these people up once they get off the boat. They're just told they got to walk.
Because they've had to search and search and search to get buses to try to get 30,000 people out of the Superdome and out of harm's way to somewhere else. I mean,
and they're going back out again tomorrow because they say that every other home there are a group of people, and they say that's pretty much the standard, especially in Gentilly. It's every other home.
Bill Capo is now in a helicopter. We still cannot reach St. Bernard. Maybe, who knows when we'll be able to reach it by land, but Bill Capo is going to be in a helicopter.
Nature singles out, it seems, just one home. And maybe there was some kind of a vortex or a small tornado within the hurricane right there and just tore this house to shreds. Just unbelievable. The flooding, and then if we can pan to the left just a little, and if we can see these rooftops just barely sticking out of the water on these single-story homes, it's just hard to fathom. Look at that. Those are homes.
We're with Walter Maestri, the Emergency Management Director in Jefferson Parish, and instead of getting better, just like Orleans Parish, conditions in Jefferson Parish also starting to get much worse today. What are your gravest needs at this point?
Well, right now, because of the situation it appears in the city with the rising water or whatever, many people from there are fleeing to the west bank of Jefferson Parish. Our shelters or our last chance refuges are now being overwhelmed.
Has equalized with the interior water inside the city, which means that there won't be any more flowing into the city except for a high tide.
We've figured out a way for people to contact each other. You know, you use your cell phone with a 504 area code and there's no way you can get through. But if you go to Singular or Sprint or one of those and you text message, all text messages are going through. And
Hearing different numbers, people still inside the Superdome, and the situation there is getting
23,000 according to the federal
23,000, and they say that time is really running out.
For the people in the Superdome, still upwards of 15 to 25,000 people. What is the plan for them?
They are going to start to be moved right after we get all the medical people out. We not only have medical people here and in the arena, but we have some over at the convention center.
Say medical people, you mean patients?
Medical patients, I'm sorry. Medical patients. We're going to move them. They're our first priority. They're not that significant number, so we should get them out within the next couple of hours.
Most have no idea where to go. All they know is they want out. Downtown is turning into a refugee camp of sorts. Hundreds left the Superdome. crowding instead the convention center. Information is as scarce as transportation.
Yeah, how can we get out of town? Without a car. Slim chance, without a car, no.
Josh found my husband, who I haven't seen since Saturday, or heard from since Saturday, and he was able to give me a note, so it's very much appreciated. And
yes.
I think that goes to the stress. I mean, we're all going through it. And when I don't think I realized how stressed I was until you gave me the note, and I had a momentary outburst of tears. Tears of joy.
Back in with a big smile on her face.
I'm telling you.
The situation in the city of Slidell itself, as we were reporting yesterday, was pretty desperate. The 20-foot wall of storm water swept in through Eden Isles, Oak Harbor, and just kept going and didn't stop.
We're obviously streaming on our website, WWL-TV.com. I know a number of you have been watching us over the past couple of days trying to get information. We're also now broadcasting all over the state of Louisiana on Louisiana Public Broadcasting. So if you're in Alexandria, Monroe, Shreveport, here in Baton Rouge, where we are right now, Lake Charles or Lafayette, you can see us on Louisiana Public Broadcasting as well.
Please stay. And again, just some very, very sobering and troubling news about the situation in the area hospitals. And as you heard Colette say, the 9 hospitals in New Orleans that are priority 1 for evacuation, and that means that either the evacs have begun, although they haven't begun at all of them, and in some of them they haven't begun at all, or Lindy Boggs, that's the old Mercy Hospital, LSU Medical Center, University Hospital, Big Charity, Tulane, Memorial Hospital, that's the old Baptist Methodist in New Orleans East, the VA Hospital, Chalmette Medical Center, and Touro Infirmary Uptown. And you can just imagine what the people, there are going through with absolutely no power at all.
Game wardens from Louisiana and Texas formed a rescue boat convoy. But instead of lakes and streams, they navigated through an urban river of putrid water to a loading dock at Tulane University Hospital and Clinic. Their mission? Evacuate hundreds of patients and take them to a staging area for pickup by ambulances for transport to Baton Rouge.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Hurricane Katrina and her aftermath from here in the New Orleans area. I'm Karen Swenson along with Dennis Waltering, and we are, again, 4 days into this.
We're going to need your patience, and we're going to need your endurance. FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security, and for that matter, all the federal agencies, are going to have to change their way of thinking, change our rules probably, do a little thinking outside the box, push the envelope. Let me put it this way, everything is on the table in terms of what we're going to have to do to recover from this disaster.
And you can see where this levee was just chewed apart. Now this is the water level view of, we're actually in the breach here.
That's the video we shot yesterday. And, it's so heartbreaking to see that many people and there's nothing you can do. I mean, I wish we could have landed the helicopter on the roof and picked them up. We didn't have the kind of room in the helicopter.
They're hot, they're tired, they're hungry, they're dehydrated. They don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. But at least for the first time since Monday morning, they're off of those roofs.
The Algiers ferry landing, photographer Willie Wilson.
Oh, this was phenomenal.
And it doesn't take much to look at. You can tell on the faces what they've been through.
Yeah.
And forget about what they're going to do tomorrow. Some people are concerned with their houses and what's going to happen and where am I going to live, and look what they've been through the last 3 days.
Our problem in St. Bernard is that we're running out of food and we're running out of water and we're desperate for help.
Good morning, everyone. We are continuing our special coverage of the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. We are coming to you from a new location from our friends at the beautiful facilities here at LPB, WLPB, Louisiana Public Broadcasting. And we want to thank these folks for letting us come and use their wonderful facilities as we continue our coverage of the biggest disaster in this state in time,
forever. Well, for the 3rd day in a row, the people in Slidell, just like people all across the Gulf Coast, are without the basic necessities. The mayor here calls it nothing short of catastrophic.
More people are coming to the Dome. I do not know if those people were in the Dome and awaiting their departure, or if those are people that lived in other parts of the city that are arriving at the Dome in hopes that they too will be evacuated.
Nearly a quarter of the state's school children, and that's not including private school and Catholic school students, have been displaced.
I want to introduce you to 7 children from the Williams family. The youngest being this little guy right here, who is 4 months old.
Oh my God.
And he's got brothers and sisters. The oldest of his brothers and sisters is just 7 years old, and they are here right at I-10 at this makeshift MASH unit. They got off the helicopter a little earlier today, brought by a neighbor who reported that they cannot find the children's mother. Some volunteers are taking care of them. They're dehydrated, they're tired, they're hungry. They're going to need some further medical assistance, but at this point they are just lost.
A half-dozen homes on the Mandeville lakefront were completely destroyed.
I can't believe this. This was a house, beautiful, just renovated. This was a house, beautiful. 3 houses here that are just gone.
Old Hammond High, right there at the 17th Street Canal. That is the 17th Street Canal from the lake to the top that is now draining out. And as you can see, the flooded area, the breach is on the New Orleans side.
Inside these walls, 5,000 different stories of late escape from hurricane-ravaged New Orleans. Johnny Anderson is from New Orleans East.
First of all, we had to swim from our house to Chef-Matour Highway.
Today I took a drive and I returned home to see what, if anything, was left.
Oh, wow. That's what a storm surge does.
Now on the other side right here, you can see that the embankment goes down a little bit. These houses were a little more protected. However, many of them are under several feet of water, as you can see tonight. City officials tell us this is not yet a rebuilding process. This is a restoration process. They still need power. They have very little water, very little food right now.
This is downtown Gulfport, and Brian Lucas and I were driving down. This is the downtown road that would lead to the casino towards the beaches, and you can just see the amount of debris that is littering the street right now, and that is the beach area. Some of the roads are now impassable. Wow. Take a look at the storm, the type of power the storm surge brought from the water onto the land. The military police, the military presence now in Gulfport is increasing.
Oh, no, we're standing in line right now to get a call. Oh, thank God, Johnny's alive. Oh, he's in Houston.
All of that debris on Sunday, those were homes. Now, you and I remember sitting here as the hurricane came through, and we were talking about the fact that Mississippi might feel the strongest blow.
This is fine.
The most of the winds and the most of the storm surge, we said the storm surge could be 30 feet. And there it is. Look, there's nothing left.
Results are not acceptable. I'm heading down there right now. I'm looking forward to talking to the people on the ground.
I don't know whether it's the governor's problem. I don't know whether it's the president's problem. But somebody needs to get their on a plane and sit down, the two of them, and figure this out right now. Don't tell me 40,000 people are coming here. They're not here. It's too doggone late. Now get off your and let's do something. And let's fix the biggest crisis in the history of this country.
Buses and gas. Buses and gas. Buses and gas. If you want to save a life, help us. We are in dire need. People are dying. Everybody that you see on TV are not bad people.
Had one of 3 fires burning. They have one reported, according to the AP, on the West Bank. This fire downtown, and the fire, an explosion that happened this morning on the riverfront in the 3500 block of Charters at that old warehouse. And as we watch the building go down, it's just it's one disaster after another.
I continue to hear that troops are on the way, but we are still protecting the city with only 1,500 New Orleans police officers, an additional 300 law enforcement personnel, 250 National Guard troops, and other military personnel who are primarily focused on evacuation. The people of our city are holding on by a thread. Over 10,000 people were evacuated yesterday, but we estimate there are 50,000 survivors still on rooftops and in shelters needing to be evacuated from the city of New Orleans. Time has run out, the mayor says. Can we survive another night? Who can we depend on?
And I've come down here, one, to take a look at the damage firsthand. And I'm telling you, it's just worse than imaginable.
We are live on top of the Causeway Bridge over Interstate 10.
where the scene behind me here is just unbelievable. It is a massive refugee camp filled with thousands and thousands of people who have come out here because of they have been rescued from New Orleans because of Hurricane Katrina. Many of them plucked off their roofs, brought in here by helicopter and by trucks, where they have sat here, many of them for 2 days, some as long as 4 days, underneath this interstate, waiting for a ride out of the city. At Causeway and Interstate 10, where this rescue operation is well underway, thousands of people getting ready to camp out. For many of them, it will be their third night sleeping here in very serious situation.
It's not safe, it's not sanitary. This is just as bad as being in an area that's full of water. We need to get out of here. We need help. We aren't animals. We shouldn't have to deal with this situation either.
And FEMA's come under a lot of criticism today for the slow response to this disaster. We're going to get our afternoon update from a FEMA official who can fill in some of the details about what's been going on. What went wrong? Is it just that the massive scope of this is so big that you...
Well, I'll make it simple for you. Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
This was a catastrophic disaster. I mean,
There were so many studies that said this was what would happen in the event of a storm like this. The newspapers wrote about it, the TV stations, all the experts, the academicians predicted it would be this bad. Why didn't and I know you can't answer, but why didn't the federal government have a plan for it?
Well, we do have a plan for it, the National Response Plan. It organizes how we get together, get organized, and make decisions to do this. The conditions we had to work in were beyond what we were able to do until we could ramp up and do better. I mean, we had to bring in the Army to do things. You know, it's just, I mean, it's an overwhelming disaster.
Thanks to the good work of the Adjutant General from Louisiana and troops that have been called in, that the convention center is secure. One of the objectives that we had today was to move in and secure that convention center and make sure the good folks there got food and water.
Well, good afternoon, Lee and Shauna. It's Friday night, 6 o'clock, and on Interstate 10, there's a whole new meaning to the word rush hour. The rescue operation is definitely in full swing here on Causeway and Interstate 10, where thousands and thousands of people have camped out, basically, waiting for a ride out of New Orleans. The one positive thing I can say here is that this rescue operation seems to be running with military precision. We've been here all afternoon, and the number of helicopters has increased, where it is now almost a constant flow of helicopters landing on the interstate, picking up people and flying off. Authorities here tell us that just yesterday, 5 people died here at this very location, waiting for someone to come and take them up. Well, we can see very little order to it. They are able to fit, I would say, you can see just, well, since we have the picture here, just the debris that is flying out over all these people in the tents here. As this helicopter looks for a landing site, there are so many helicopters here. They are landing in pretty much any available space they can find.
Staying in the shelter with no light. A baby can't stay in there, it's too high, mosquitoes bite, that's too much.
We're joined now in studio by Senator David Vitter. Thank you for coming in.
And good to be with you.
Mike, you say that people are still arriving at the convention center, and you say that they're still arriving at the Superdome. Where are they coming from? I mean, are these people coming out of the water that they've been fighting to get through for the last few days? What kind of condition are they in?
See, I'm obviously failing in this regard in helping all of us get our arms around that issue. That is exactly what is happening. You have a major urban area, the 35th largest city in the United States of America, that has been essentially 80–90% of it flooded. Some of it's drying out now. And as it continues to dry out, or people find a way to get out of places where they did not evacuate from, they present themselves. They show up. Let me put it that way. They show up. And they show up at a convention center or a Superdome, or they show up on an overpass somewhere as they get out. And that's why we don't know how many are out there.
Secretary Mike Brown, where he characterized the progress in New Orleans over the past 24 to 48 hours as dramatic. He says 13,000 National Guard troops are on the ground, and that has had a direct influence on the security there, as he reports that no one has been shot at in New Orleans in the past 48 hours. 4,000 people have been lifted out in the past day, and 95% of the Superdome has been evacuated, although people do continue to still arrive there.
At first we heard that the twin spans were wiped out. They weren't completely wiped out. You can see there's road, but there's not one area except for the hump that was not damaged, and it wasn't damaged by the wind, it was the storm surge. The water was so immense that it was able to float concrete off of pilings and move them.
But this, Jennifer, is a dramatically different scene than what we saw yesterday. I mean, yesterday this was filled. There were all kinds of people along the
chaos in some degree.
On the grassy areas, waiting to be airlifted out of there.
The water remains high in the adjacent neighborhood, and fires continue to burn. The battle is to fill a hole 30 feet deep.
We hope to place approximately 700 sandbags by tonight within that breach.
There are 2 helicopters making the loop here. They pick up the sandbags here, swing around, drop them off in the breach. From pick up to drop off takes about 90 seconds.
What's the message to the people of the city right now? They're in Baton Rouge, all over the place, waiting to hear what's happening with their city.
The message to the people really around the country as it relates to New Orleans is that I think we're starting to turn the corner.
1 week after the Hurricane Katrina turned the region into a disaster area, residents of Jefferson Parish were allowed to go back to salvage what is left of their homes.
Before he got inside, Roy Hawk knew the best-case scenario was weeks of repair work.
They had a foot of water. I expect to see a lot of trashed-up furniture and carpet. What are you going to do?
And his prediction was on point. There's already mold growing on the walls of his Metairie home where the water was. Hawk sloshed through the soggy carpet to get a look at the damage. Even though he took precautions and stacked up furniture, he still took a hard hit.
That water line came up to about right here, about a foot up. And we'll have to tear out all the baseboards, cut the sheetrock to about here.
I know nobody's here.
Fire department,
Whoa!
right home.
Going from apartment to apartment, looking for any survivors. And what they find is not people who want to stay, but people who never could leave.
Staying home, and not a lot of people left in the city, man.
There's hardly anybody left in the city.
Anybody left in the shelters or anything?
The situation is stabilized. The breach is closed. The next step is to pump it dry. And beyond the main pumps along the 17th Street Canal, the Corps of Engineers is setting up 3 more pumps like this just for this area to get the water out as fast as possible.
You know, we just put forth whatever it took. That was the orders we were given, and we used every asset that was possible, you know, as quick as possible. To do this in 7 days, and it's quite a feet.
It is so good to be back.
I feel like singing just because it's good to be back in New Orleans.
You remember when they had to evacuate the station? There was the 3 of us who started the broadcast in Baton Rouge, and I remember what an eerie feeling and a feeling of impending catastrophe that was that night. And now it is so good to be back.
And that wondering of what's going to happen.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, there was so much uncertainty that night, and now what happened is so much worse than anybody thought.
Yes.